And, there's no feeling quite as overwhelming as grief. In fact, I think that we're all familiar with the different stages. So I'm going to go through those quickly to take me out of my feelings. So they're in phases, and I've certainly experienced this. The first is denial, right? It's when you first learn of the loss. Or even, I always say that I started grieving my father 7 years ago when he was diagnosed as having Alzheimer's dementia. And so for me, it's interesting. This grief has, gone on for a very long time in small doses. And even though I learned to live in a way with him where I could just enjoy our time together and appreciate him, I realized this week that because I haven't created any new memories with him in 7 years, that you almost start forgetting some of the other ones because you haven't experienced this person for so long.
It's interesting, our kids, especially our older kids, really didn't know your father before don't have any strong memories with him. And I think Mira, my older daughter, was saying that, she doesn't really remember Abe, your dad, before. But it's interesting, I thought about this, I think some of our listeners might know my father, who left this physical world almost 7 years, almost 8 years ago. He had a stroke nearly 10 years before that. And I remember, again, and it's, these are processes, but I remember thinking that on some level, having had time, I know for myself, having had time, not that it makes it easy, because it's never going to be easy, but somehow it prepares you a little bit more than somebody who leaves this world in a sudden way.
I think that's
I wonder
true.
if that's, yeah.
And I think that's where I was before we got here. And because he, on top of already having had those ailments, he got even sicker in this past weekend in very sad ways. I feel like I'm losing him all over again on another level, because he looks to me like he's in pain. So it's bringing up, I think, things that I dealt with already 7 years ago. And that's the thing. That's why I want to talk about grief, because it comes out of nowhere almost, right? So denial's first, right? You might think, is this really happening? You feel shocked, you feel numb. And really, it's a defense mechanism. Then there's anger. As reality sets in, you're faced with the pain of your loss. You may feel frustrated and helpless. So this eventually does turn into anger. And we get angry at all kinds of things, right? Like, why did this happen? It's not fair. We go into the question of, why do good people suffer? Why did God do this, right? And then we can talk about that if you want to go down that rabbit hole, but that's a place often people go to. And then there's bargaining. I remember I did this when we got Josh's diagnosis at first, I'll do anything if, right? If it could just be a different thing. This is not a real result that the doctor has given us of the blood test. So, strike a deal with a higher power. And then there's depression. That's the sadness that sets in as you finally understand loss and its effect in your life. And then there's finally acceptance, which is the final stage of grief, knowing that it cannot be changed.